Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that much of what you've been taught to value, to desire, and even to believe about yourself has been carefully shaped not by your own soul, but by the invisible hand of society. Think about that for a moment. How much of your life is truly yours? And how much is the product of an elaborate narrative designed to keep you busy, distracted, and obedient? In this video, we're going to uncover the great deception of modern society. And I promise you, the final revelation will be the most powerful of all, one that could completely transform the way you understand your life, your freedom, and the world around you. But before we go further, I ask you to support this channel. Subscribe, leave a like, share this message, and comment below your thoughts as we move forward. Because what you're about to hear might resonate deeply. And I want to know how it touches your life. Remember this, the revelations we'll uncover today can change the way you see not only the world, but yourself. Now let us begin our journey. Modern society prides itself on being enlightened, advanced, and free. We live in an age of unparalleled technology, instant communication, and endless entertainment. Yet beneath the shining surface, there exists a profound illusion. The French philosopher Jean Baudrillard once wrote that modern culture no longer deals in reality, but in simulations of reality. He argued that we consume images, symbols, and ideas that pretend to represent truth, but in fact replace it entirely. What we believe to be real is often nothing more than a carefully curated spectacle. Think about the news you consume, the advertisements you see, the ideals of success that are presented to you every single day. How often do they actually reflect your authentic values? And how often do they subtly dictate what you should want, what you should fear, and even who you should be? This is the first layer of the deception, the belief that the world being shown to you is the real one. But in truth, much of it is constructed. And the more deeply we immerse ourselves in it, the further we drift from our authentic selves. Psychologist Erich Fromm, in his work Escape from Freedom, warned that many people, faced with the overwhelming responsibility of true freedom, unconsciously prefer to surrender their autonomy to systems, authorities, and cultural norms. He explained that the modern individual often confuses conformity with freedom. We are told that we are free because we can choose between hundreds of brands, thousands of distractions, and limitless entertainment. But is that real freedom? Or is it simply the illusion of choice, keeping us too occupied to ask the deeper questions about meaning, purpose, and truth? Now reflect with me. How many times have you pursued something simply because society told you it was valuable? A certain career, a lifestyle, a material possession? And when you finally achieved it, did it truly satisfy your soul? Or did the satisfaction fade quickly, leaving you searching again, like someone chasing a mirage in the desert? This endless cycle of desire and dissatisfaction is one of the most powerful tools of control in modern life. It keeps people striving without ever arriving, longing without ever being fulfilled. Friedrich Nietzsche, with his piercing insight into human behavior, warned against living according to the values of the herd. He believed that most people, rather than creating their own values, simply adopt those imposed upon them by the collective. This, he argued, leads to a life of mediocrity, of half-truths, and of spiritual decay. Nietzsche's challenge was radical. Dare to question everything society has told you and begin the painful but liberating task of creating your own path. But how many of us truly dare? The deception becomes even more dangerous when we realize that it doesn't just affect what we want, but how we see ourselves. In modern culture, self-worth is often measured by external standards. How much money you earn, how attractive you appear, how many followers you have, how productive you are. But these are not natural measures of human dignity. They are manufactured standards designed to keep people endlessly comparing themselves, endlessly striving, and endlessly consuming. And the more we internalize these standards, the more we forget our intrinsic worth as conscious beings. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, who would you be if society's labels and expectations were stripped away? If no one told you what success should look like, if no one judged your worth by your appearance, your wealth, or your status, what would remain? That question, though uncomfortable, cuts directly into the heart of the great deception, because at its core, the deception is not only about controlling your choices, it is about controlling your identity. Carl Jung once observed that the greatest tragedy of modern man is that he has lost touch with his own soul. In the pursuit of progress, efficiency, and material success, we have neglected the inner life. Jung believed that this disconnection leads to emptiness, anxiety, and despair. We are surrounded by more comforts than any previous generation, and yet psychological suffering is at an all-time high. Why? Because comfort without meaning is hollow. Distraction without depth only numbs us temporarily. This is why so many people feel a vague but persistent sense of unease, as though something vital is missing from their lives, even when everything seems fine on the surface. It is the soul's quiet rebellion against the deception. Deep inside, something within us knows that the life being sold to us is not the life we were meant to live. And here is where the true journey begins. To see through the deception of society is to awaken to your own power. It is to realize that the narratives around you are not absolute truths, but stories. And stories can be rewritten. The philosophers, psychologists, and thinkers who dared to question the illusions of their time all left us with the same challenge. Do not simply live the life society hands you. Seek the deeper truth, the one that resonates not with the world outside, but with the eternal reality within. This is only the beginning. In the next part, we will dig deeper into how the deception operates, not only through culture and media, but also through the very structure of the economic and social systems that surround us. And the final revelation, which we will arrive at together, will be the most powerful of all, the secret about the human spirit that no deception can ever fully suppress. When we begin to peel back the layers of the great deception of modern society, what we find is not merely a series of isolated illusions, but an entire system built upon them. It is a web so intricate that most people never even realize they are caught within it. The surface deceptions, consumerism, false ideals of success, manipulated images, are just the beginning. Beneath these lies a deeper machinery, one that quietly shapes our lives through structures of power, economy, and social conditioning. Think for a moment about how society defines value. In our world today, value is almost always expressed in monetary terms. A person's worth is tied to their economic productivity. An activity's worth is measured by whether it generates profit. Even time itself is commodified. We are constantly reminded not to waste it, but instead to invest it, as if our very existence were nothing more than a financial portfolio. This reduction of human life to economic terms is one of the most dangerous aspects of the Great Deception, because it quietly convinces us that we are only as valuable as what we produce or consume. Karl Marx, though often misunderstood and politicized, made a critical observation about this phenomenon in his analysis of capitalism. He argued that under such systems, human beings become alienated from their labor, from one another, and, most tragically, from themselves. He described how workers could pour their soul into their labor only to see the fruits of their effort turned into commodities for the benefit of others. In this way, the individual's creative energy and uniqueness are stolen, packaged, and sold back to them. Isn't it striking how relevant this still feels in our own time? How many people today feel like cogs in a machine, giving their time and energy to a system that leaves them exhausted, unfulfilled, and disconnected? But the deception goes even deeper than economics. Our educational systems, which could be places of awakening and creativity, too often become instruments of conformity. They teach us to memorize rather than to question, to follow instructions rather than to explore. From a young age, children are conditioned to sit still, obey authority, and compete for grades, marks that determine their value in the system. Sir Ken Robinson once argued that schools kill creativity, not because teachers wish it, but because the structure itself is designed to produce efficient workers for the economy, not free thinkers for the future. And here lies another bitter truth. By the time many of us reach adulthood, we have already been trained to equate obedience with success. Reflect on this. How many times have you suppressed your own voice, your own questions, or your own creative spark simply because it did not align with what was expected of you? How many dreams have been abandoned, not because they were impossible, but because they were impractical within the framework of modern society's definition of success? These are not accidents. They are the quiet results of a system that prizes conformity over authenticity. The media, too, plays its role in this grand deception. It does not simply inform, it shapes reality itself. The philosopher Noam Chomsky described how media functions as a tool of manufactured consent, guiding public opinion not by outright lies, but by carefully selecting what is shown and what is ignored. In this way, entire populations can be guided to accept wars, policies, or cultural trends without ever questioning the hidden motives behind them. The illusion of freedom remains because people still feel they are making choices, but the menu of choices has already been predetermined. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly felt that your opinions were entirely your own? How many of your beliefs are the product of deep reflection? And how many have been unconsciously absorbed from headlines, trends, or conversations repeated so many times they feel like truth? This is perhaps one of the most unsettling aspects of the Great Deception, that it infiltrates not just what we do, but what we think. And then comes technology. At first glance, technology seems to be the greatest blessing of modern life. It connects us across distances, grants us endless knowledge, and offers convenience beyond imagination. Yet as philosopher Byung-Chul Han warns in his writings, technology also becomes a new instrument of control, not through force, but through seduction. Social media platforms, for instance, do not demand your attention. They entice it. They do not imprison you. They addict you. By design, they trigger dopamine responses, keeping you scrolling, liking, and consuming without end. In this way, freedom turns into voluntary captivity, where the chains are invisible and even pleasurable. And while we are distracted, while our eyes are fixed on glowing screens, something crucial is stolen from us. Our presence, the ability to be still, to be in the moment, to engage deeply with others and with ourselves. Modern society convinces us that constant connection is the same as true connection, but the two are not the same. One fills the screen with noise, the other fills the soul with meaning. Yet in this trade, most people end up lonelier than ever before, despite being more connected than at any point in human history. Now consider this. Why is it that rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout are skyrocketing in societies that by material standards should be thriving? Why do people who have more comforts, more choices, and more opportunities than any previous generation often feel so empty? The answer lies in the very nature of the deception. A life built upon illusions, no matter how comfortable, will always lack the substance to nourish the soul. But here is where the story shifts. Seeing the deception is not the end. It is the beginning of awakening. The cracks in the illusion allow us to glimpse a deeper truth. The fact that you feel discontent, that you sense something missing, that you question the narrative, that is proof that your soul is still alive beneath the noise. It is your inner self reminding you that you were not born to be just a consumer, just a producer, or just a number in a system. You were born to awaken, to create, to live with depth and authenticity. As we move forward, we will begin to explore what it means to reclaim this lost authenticity, to rediscover meaning in a world built on distraction. And remember, the most important revelation is yet to come. When it arrives, it will challenge everything you thought you knew. And it may just give you the key to stepping outside the deception once and for all. We have seen how the great deception infiltrates our culture, our economy, our education, and even our technology. But perhaps the most profound layer of the illusion is not external at all. It is internal. It is the way society shapes our very sense of self, our identity, and our inner world. This is where the deception becomes most dangerous, because when you no longer know who you are, you become easy to control. From the moment we are born, we are showered with expectations. Family, culture, and media all provide invisible scripts for how we are supposed to live. We are told what success looks like, what beauty is, what happiness should be. And slowly, without even realizing it, we begin to wear masks. Carl Jung described these masks as the persona, the version of ourselves that we show to the world. The persona is not inherently false, it is a necessary part of social life. But when we confuse the persona with our true self, when we become trapped in the mask, we lose touch with the deeper layers of who we are. Think about this. How much of your daily life is lived as a performance? How often do you suppress what you feel or say, what is expected rather than what is true? How often do you dress, speak, or even think in ways that align not with your inner soul, but with the image that society demands of you? The more we live in this performance, the further we drift from authenticity. And the tragedy is that many people reach the end of their lives without ever having met their real selves. The psychologist Abraham Maslow, best known for his hierarchy of needs, argued that beyond basic survival and social belonging lies the need for self-actualization, the realization of one's fullest potential. But Maslow warned that very few people reach this stage, not because it is impossible, but because society constantly pulls us back down into lower levels of need. We are kept busy chasing security, approval, and recognition. As long as we are preoccupied with these, we rarely lift our eyes to the higher calling of self-discovery and transcendence. This is not an accident. A society filled with self-actualized individuals would be impossible to manipulate. People who know themselves, who live from their inner truth, are not easily swayed by advertising, politics, or social pressure. They become independent, grounded, and free. And so, in a way, the great deception thrives on our ignorance of self. The less we know who we are, the more we rely on external voices to tell us. But the consequences of this inner deception go beyond control. They go to the very heart of human suffering. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, observed that the deepest pain in life is not physical hardship, but existential emptiness, the sense that life lacks meaning. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl described how even in the worst conditions imaginable, those who found meaning were able to endure, while those who could not often perished spiritually. His insight is timeless. We do not live by comfort alone. We live by meaning. Now ask yourself, what gives your life meaning? Is it something that was handed to you by society, or is it something you discovered in the depths of your own experience? Do you live for the approval of others, or do you live for a purpose that resonates with your soul? These questions are not merely philosophical, they are revolutionary, because the moment you begin to answer them honestly, the deception starts to lose its power. Modern society tells us that happiness comes from external achievements, wealth, beauty, status, recognition. But all of these are fleeting. They can vanish in an instant. And when they do, those who built their identity upon them crumble. True happiness, as countless philosophers and spiritual teachers have reminded us, comes not from what you possess, but from who you become. It comes from aligning your life with your inner truth, with values that are timeless and unshakable. And yet, how many people truly pause long enough to ask themselves who they are becoming? The pace of modern life is designed to prevent such reflection. We rush from one task to another, from one distraction to the next, never allowing silence to reveal the truth of our existence. Blaise Pascal once remarked that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. He wrote this centuries ago, and yet it feels even more urgent today. In a world addicted to noise and distraction, silence becomes an act of rebellion. But here lies the paradox. The very system that deceives us also creates the conditions for awakening, because eventually the soul cannot be silenced forever. The emptiness becomes unbearable, the mass too heavy, the distractions too hollow. At some point, life itself forces us to confront the question we have avoided. Who am I really? This moment of crisis, though painful, is the doorway to transformation. It is the moment when the illusions collapse and the search for truth begins. The philosopher Martin Heidegger called this confrontation authentic being towards death. He argued that only by facing our mortality, by recognizing that life is finite, can we strip away the illusions and begin to live authentically. When we remember that our time is limited, the trivial concerns of society lose their power, and we are compelled to live with depth and urgency. It is often in moments of loss, suffering, or near-death experiences that people awaken from the deception and begin to see life clearly. So let me ask you, if today were your last day, would you be satisfied with the life you are living? Would you feel that you have lived true to yourself, or would you regret that you allowed society's script to define your story? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. And perhaps the courage to ask them, to sit with them, and to act upon them is the first step toward liberation from the great deception. Now imagine what a world would look like if more people awakened to their true selves. If instead of chasing status, we pursued wisdom. If instead of competing endlessly, we collaborated. If instead of filling the void with possessions, we filled it with presence. Such a world would look radically different from the one we live in today. And while it may seem like a distant dream, every awakening begins with one person, one choice to step outside the deception and into authenticity. This brings us to the threshold of the final revelation, the deepest truth that underlies the great deception. In the last part of this journey, we will uncover the ultimate key, the realization that beyond all illusions, beyond all systems and mass, lies a power within the human spirit that no deception can ever fully suppress. This is the truth that society fears, the truth that has been whispered by sages and philosophers across the ages. And it is the truth that has the potential to set you free. We have walked together through the illusions of society, consumerism, conformity, distraction, and false identity. And we have seen how each one works to keep us asleep. But now we arrive at the deepest truth, the revelation that modern society cannot fully suppress no matter how much noise and deception it creates. And that truth is this: you are not simply a product of your environment. You are not just a consumer, a worker, or a performer on society's stage. At your core, you are a conscious being capable of awakening, capable of transcending the illusions that surround you. This truth may sound simple, but it is revolutionary, because the greatest deception of modern society is not merely that it distracts you or manipulates you. It is that it convinces you that you are powerless. It whispers that you are too small to change, too dependent to break free, too insignificant to matter. And yet history is filled with examples of individuals who broke free from the illusions of their time and reshaped the world. Socrates, who challenged the false wisdom of Athens. Buddha, who saw through the illusions of suffering and sought enlightenment. Jesus, who confronted the hypocrisy of his age with the radical power of love and truth. These figures were not gods in disguise. They were human beings who refused to remain asleep. The philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." His words capture the essence of what it means to resist the great deception. True power lies not in wealth, not in status, not in what society tells you to chase, but in the courage to live authentically, to follow the voice of your own soul, even when it contradicts the noise of the world. So what does it mean to awaken from the deception? First, it means to recognize the illusions for what they are, to see consumerism not as freedom, but as a trap, to see conformity not as safety, but as silence, to see distraction not as rest, but as a way of numbing the emptiness. Awareness is the beginning. Once you see the deception, it can no longer control you in the same way. Second, awakening means reclaiming your inner authority. It means daring to ask, what do I truly value? What gives my life meaning? What kind of person do I want to become? These questions cannot be answered by society, by media, or by tradition. They can only be answered by you. And the answers may take time. They may evolve, but the very act of asking them is a declaration of freedom. Third, awakening means embracing responsibility. Freedom is not easy. As Eric Fromm warned, many people flee from freedom because it feels too heavy, too uncertain. But the weight of freedom is also the weight of dignity. When you choose your path consciously, when you take responsibility for your life, you step into the fullness of what it means to be human. And finally, awakening means connecting to something greater than yourself. For some, this may be spirituality, the sense that there is a higher reality beyond the material. For others, it may be the pursuit of truth, beauty, or justice. For still others, it may be the deep bond of love and compassion for fellow human beings. Whatever form it takes, this connection pulls you out of isolation and reminds you that your existence is part of a greater whole. It gives you strength to resist the deception because you know that your life has purpose beyond what society tells you. Let us pause here. Look within yourself right now. Ask, where in my life am I still living by society's script? And where am I living by my own truth? What masks am I wearing that no longer serve me? What distractions am I clinging to that keep me from facing the silence within? These are not questions to answer quickly. They are questions to carry with you, to let them work on you until the answers emerge with clarity. The most powerful revelation is this: no matter how deep the deception, the truth within you remains untouched. Society can cover it, distract you from it, even mock it, but it cannot destroy it. That spark of consciousness, that inner voice, that longing for authenticity is indestructible. It is the one thing the system cannot control. And the moment you choose to listen to it, you begin to break free. This is why so many of the greatest thinkers and teachers of history insisted that real revolution begins within. Change the inner world, and the outer world follows. A society of awakened individuals cannot be deceived in the same way because they no longer seek validation from illusions. They live from the truth within them. So I leave you with this final challenge. Do not let the great deception define your life. Do not settle for the masks, the distractions, or the shallow measures of worth. Choose instead to awaken, to live authentically, and to seek meaning and truth in every step you take. Because the most radical act you can commit in a world of illusions is to live as your true self. And now, as you reflect on everything we have uncovered, I ask you to take a moment to share your thoughts below. Which part of this journey resonated most deeply with you? Where do you see the deception in your own life? And what steps will you take to move beyond it? Engage in this conversation because awakening does not happen in isolation. It grows stronger when we seek truth together. If this message has touched you, subscribe to this channel, share this video with others, and keep returning for more explorations into philosophy, psychology, in the timeless wisdom that can guide us through the noise of modern life. Together, we can peel back the illusions and move closer to the reality of who we are meant to be. Remember this: the great deception of modern society is powerful, but your truth is more powerful still. And the moment you awaken to it, nothing can ever deceive you in the same way again. Thanks for watching.